The statue in the dark, the mining station floated in the black emptiness of space. No lights, no movement, just silence. Jack's cargo ship approached slowly, its engines humming low. The station had been abandoned for years, but his scanners showed a faint energy reading. He was here to collect old machinery, maybe find something valuable. But deep down, Jack knew this place felt wrong. He docked his ship and stepped into the cold airlock. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he walked through the dark corridors. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars. Broken doors hung from their hinges. He could hear only the sound of his own breathing. Every step felt like someone or something was watching him. In the old storage hall, Jack's flashlight beam caught something strange. At the far end of the room stood a statue. It was the figure of a young alien girl, carved with impossible detail. Her skin looked like smooth stone, but her expression was filled with fear. Her large eyes seemed to be looking right at him. Jack stepped closer, heart pounding. The statue was beautiful but unsettling. The alien girl's hair was frozen in motion, as if she had turned to stone in an instant. Her hands were half raised, like she had been trying to reach for someone. Jack crouched to look at her face more closely. That was when he saw it. Her eyes moved. It was only a small flicker, but it was real. Jack jumped back, shocked. The statue blinked slowly, her stone lips parting just a little. "Help," she whispered, her voice so faint it barely reached his ears. Before he could speak, her body stiffened even more. The skin on her arm cracked like old rock. Jack realized with horror she was alive, and she was turning into stone without thinking. He reached out and touched her shoulder. The surface was cold and hard, but under it, he felt a weak pulse. She was still alive, but she wouldn't be for long. He had no idea what was happening, or how to stop it, but leaving her here wasn't an option. He had to get her to his ship. Jack carefully lifted her into his arms. She was surprisingly light, but every movement made her wince. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes half closed. The station creaked around him, the sound of metal shifting in the cold vacuum. Jack moved quickly through the corridors, feeling the tension rise with every step. It was as if the shadows were following him. Back in his ship, he placed her gently on a medical bed. The scanner's screen flickered, showing strange readings he had never seen before. Her skin temperature was dropping fast. Parts of her body were already completely stone. Jack tried speaking to her, but she didn't respond. Her breathing was slowing. Then for a brief moment, her eyes opened wide. She looked straight at him, her gaze desperate and pleading. "My name." "Lyra," she said weakly. Jack leaned closer, trying to understand. "Stone, spreading." "No time," she whispered before closing her eyes again. The words chilled Jack more than the cold air of the station. He sat back, running a hand over his face. He didn't know who Lyra was or what had happened to her, but she was in trouble, and somehow only he had found her. He checked the ship's systems. Everything was ready for takeoff. They had to leave this station now, but as he powered up the engines, an uneasy thought hit him. Someone had left her here. Someone had cursed her, and if they knew she was still alive, they might come looking. Jack didn't know it yet, but saving Lyra would put him against something far older and far more dangerous than anything he had faced before. Asterisk, the countdown begins. The ship's engines roared softly as Jack left the mining station behind. The stars outside stretched into long white lines as they jumped into faster-than-light travel. Lyra lay on the medical bed, her breathing uneven. The stone pattern had spread to her shoulder and part of her neck. Jack watched the scanner in frustration. It didn't know what to call this condition. It only flashed red warnings. Suddenly, Lyra's fingers twitched. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing strange silver eyes. She looked around, disoriented, then focused on Jack. "You took me away from the station," she said in a soft, weak voice. Jack nodded. "You were in trouble. I couldn't just leave you." Her eyes filled with both relief and fear. "You don't understand," she whispered. "This is the petrification curse. It started 12 hours ago. In 60 more, I will be stone forever. Jack froze, trying to process her words. How do I stop it? He asked quickly. Lyra shook her head slowly. Only a human can stop it. But I don't know exactly how. Her voice trembled. The last one who tried died. Jack's mind raced. Why only a human? He wanted to ask more, but Lyra coughed, the sound harsh and painful. Her skin made a faint cracking noise as the stone spread further down her arm. She gasped, clutching at her chest. Jack grabbed the medkit, searching for anything that could help, but none of his tools were meant for something like this. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to think clearly. All right, you said 60 hours left, Jack said firmly. Where do we go? To find the cure. Lyra's eyes glistened as she answered. There's an old temple far from here. It holds the heart resonator. She closed her eyes again, her voice fading. It's the only thing that can reverse the curse. Jack set the ship's course, his hands moving fast over the controls. The navigation system showed the temple was on a moon deep in restricted space. It would take nearly a full day to get there if nothing went wrong. He glanced at Lyra, wondering what kind of danger was waiting for them. But before he could think further, the ship's alarm blared. An incoming vessel was closing in fast. Jack switched on the external cameras. A dark, jagged ship was approaching, its weapons already charged. His stomach tightened. Whoever they weren't here for friendly conversation. Lyra stirred weakly, sensing the tension. Her eyes widened. They found me, she whispered. The enemy ship fired a warning shot, rattling Jack's controls. He had no choice but to either fight or run. But running would waste time, and Lyra didn't have much of it left. Jack's jaw tightened as he made his decision. If they wanted her, they'd have to go through him first, and Jack wasn't planning on losing. The first clue, Jack's ship shook violently as another blast hit the outer hull. He swerved hard, pulling the vessel into a tight roll. The enemy ship followed closely, its shadow growing larger on his radar. Jack's hands moved fast across the controls, switching from defense to offense. He fired 2 plasma bursts, forcing the attacker to break formation. That gave him the opening he needed. He slammed the throttle forward and dived into a nearby asteroid field. Rocks the size of small buildings floated all around them. The enemy ship hesitated before following. Its larger frame made the chase dangerous, using the asteroids as cover. Jack slipped deeper into the field. Minutes later, the radar showed the pursuer turning away. Jack let out a slow breath, but his relief was short-lived. Lyra's breathing had become shallow again. The stone had now reached the side of her face. Jack sat beside her, speaking softly. We're almost safe for now. Her silver eyes opened halfway. You won't be safe. Not until it's over, she whispered. Then she said something that caught him off guard. My people feared this curse for centuries, but humans, you are different. Jack frowned. Different how? Lyra hesitated, then nodded toward the ship's console. In the station's core, there were records. They hold the truth. Jack checked the navigation logs. The station's data chip was still in his pocket. He slid it into the reader. The screen flickered to life, showing old mining logs. Most of them were boring ore shipments, worker schedules, but then he found it. A hidden folder marked Project Medusa. Jack opened the file and scanned the text. It spoke of an ancient illness called the petrification plague. The strange part, it mentioned that only humans carried the life resonance needed to stop it. The document described the device called the heart resonator. It was said to draw energy from a human heartbeat and use it to break the stone curse. But the details were incomplete. Parts of the text corrupted. Jack cursed under his breath. Lyra closed her eyes, whispering, "The temple has won." The last one left. Her voice was fading, but her urgency was clear. Jack looked at the star map. The temple was still a long journey ahead. But now they had a direction, and maybe a chance. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling they were being tracked. The enemy ship might have left for now, but it wouldn't give up. and something told Jack that whoever wanted Lyra turned to stone was far more dangerous than just a group of pirates. The pirates' warning, the asteroid field was behind them, but Jack kept checking the scanners. Every few minutes, a faint blip appeared on the edge of the radar. Whoever had attacked them before was still out there, keeping their distance. Jack adjusted their course toward the temple's coordinates. Lyra lay in the medbay, her condition worsening with each passing hour. The stone had now spread down both arms. Jack was about to check her vitals again when the ship's alarm blared. A small craft suddenly jumped into view ahead of them. Its hull was black with jagged markings like scars on metal. Before Jack could react, the ship fired a disabling pulse. The controls went dead, and the cargo ship drifted in space like a trapped insect. A docking clamp latched onto them with a deep metallic thud. Jack grabbed his plasma pistol and moved toward the airlock. The inner door hissed open, and 3 figures stepped inside. They were pirates, their armor patched together from different battles. At the front was their captain, a tall man with a scar running across one glowing cybernetic eye. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on Jack first. Then his eyes shifted toward the medbay. "I'm not here for your cargo," the captain said in a low voice. "I'm here to give you a warning." Jack kept his pistol raised. "You attacked us before, now you want to talk?" The captain smirked. "That wasn't me. That was them." Jack's grip tightened. "Them who?" The captain's smile faded, replaced by a hard, cold expression. "The Stone Lords," he said quietly. "They know you have her, and they will not stop." Jack glanced at Lyra through the medbay window. Her breathing was slow, her skin nearly half stone. The captain took a step closer, lowering his voice even more. "If you care about your life, you'll leave her too." "Her fate," Jack's jaw clenched. "Not an option." The captain shook his head, almost impressed. "You don't understand. Saving her isn't just hard, it's forbidden." Jack didn't reply, but his eyes stayed locked on the pirate. After a tense pause, the captain turned to leave as he stepped back into his ship. He gave one last warning. Every ship that's tried to help one of her kind is now dust in the void. With that, the docking clamps released, and the pirate vessel drifted away. Jack stood in silence for a moment. Then he turned to Lyra, speaking softly. "We're still going to the temple." He didn't know if he could save her, but he knew he wouldn't let the Stone Lords decide her fate. The Temple of Echoes. The storm began before they even entered the moon's atmosphere. Lightning danced across the clouds like silver veins in the sky. Jack's ship shook as heavy winds pulled them off course. The navigation screen flickered. Warning of unstable magnetic fields. Through the turbulence, the dark silhouette of the temple rose from the rocky surface. It stood like a jagged crown against the storm. Jack landed the ship on a cracked stone platform outside. The air was thin, cold, and tasted faintly of metal. Lyra was barely conscious, the stone now creeping toward her jaw. Her silver eyes opened just enough to whisper, "Inside." Before it's too late, Jack wrapped a thermal cloak around her and carried her toward the entrance. The temple doors were massive slabs of black stone, etched with strange patterns. As he stepped inside, the storm outside seemed to vanish. The air was unnaturally still. Jack's footsteps echoed in a way that felt wrong, as if the sound was bouncing back from somewhere far deeper than the walls. Faded murals covered the walls. They showed alien figures, each half stone, half flesh, reaching toward a glowing object. In every image, a shadowy figure stood in the background. Watching, Lyra's breathing grew weaker. Jack moved faster, following a faint hum that seemed to come from deep within the temple. The corridor opened into a vast chamber. In the center stood a strange device, a tall crystal-like structure surrounded by golden rings. It pulsed faintly, each beat in perfect rhythm with Jack's own heart. He didn't understand how, but he felt drawn to it. "This is it," Lyra whispered, her voice barely a breath. Jack stepped toward the machine, but before he could touch it, a deep voice filled the chamber. "Step away, human." From the shadows, figures emerged, tall beings in black armor, their eyes glowing like embers, the Stone Lords. Their presence made the air heavy, as if the room itself feared them. The leader stepped forward, his armor marked with ancient symbols. "Return the cursed one to us, and we may let you leave," he said. Jack tightened his grip on Lyra. "Not happening." The leader tilted his head slightly. "You think you can defy us? She carries the punishment of our ancestors. She must remain as stone." Lyra's eyes shone with a faint light. "They are the ones who cursed me?" The Stone Lord's gaze turned colder. Jack could feel the tension rise like a coil ready to snap. The heart resonator pulsed faster now. He realized that this moment could be his only chance. If he failed, Lyra would be lost forever. If he succeeded, he might make enemies that no human had ever survived. And the storm outside was nothing compared to the one that was about to begin inside. The human's choice. The chamber's air grew heavier, thick with an unseen force, the golden rings around. The heart resonator began to spin slowly, humming with deep energy. Jack's heartbeat echoed through the floor. Matching the crystal's rhythm, the Stone Lords moved in a circle, closing the distance with slow, deliberate steps. Their leader raised a massive black spear, its tip glowing with a cold light. "This is your final warning, human," his voice rumbled like stone grinding against stone. Jack set Lyra gently against the base of the resonator. Her eyes fluttered open, fear and trust mixing in her gaze. "You can still leave," she whispered weakly. Jack shook his head, his voice steady. "Not without you." He could see the stone now crawling up her neck. Her time was nearly gone. The first Stone Lord stepped forward. Swinging his spear, Jack rolled aside just in time, the weapon striking the floor with a crack that sent dust raining from the ceiling. Without a second thought, Jack pulled the resonator's lever. A burst of light filled the room. The golden rings spun faster, releasing waves of heat and vibration. Jack felt the machine pulling something from him, his strength, his breath, his very heartbeat. Lyra gasped as the light touched her. The stone on her face began to crack and flake away. The leader roared in anger, charging at Jack. Jack stumbled but kept his hands on the controls. Every second he held on seemed to burn his body from the inside. He knew the resonator was draining his life to save hers. One of the Stone Lords lunged, but the energy burst through him back. The others stepped away, shielding their eyes from the light. Lyra's voice grew stronger. "Jack, stop, it's too much." Jack gritted his teeth. "Not until you're free." The resonator's hum reached a deafening pitch. Cracks of light spread across the floor like glowing veins. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the machine slowed. Jack collapsed to one knee, his vision spinning. Lyra's skin was almost free of the stone, only her left hand remained petrified. The leader glared at Jack, his voice low and cold. "You have delayed the curse, but you have not broken it. To finish this, you must enter the heart of our fortress." The Stone Lord stepped back into the shadows, vanishing as if swallowed by the walls. The resonator went dark, leaving the chamber in silence. Jack leaned against it, barely able to stand. Lyra knelt beside him, her silver eyes brighter than before. "You gave me time, but now the real fight begins," she said. Jack nodded slowly, knowing that their next move would take them into the lion's den. The final hour, the fortress of the Stone Lords, rose like a mountain of black iron against a blood-red sky. Its spires clawed at the clouds, and rivers of molten metal flowed through deep trenches. Jack's ship hovered low, hidden in the shadow of a jagged cliff. Lyra stood beside him, the last traces of stone still clinging to her left hand. They both knew there was no turning back. The cure was inside, and so was death. They slipped through an old maintenance tunnel. The air inside was hot and heavy, carrying the metallic scent of molten ore. Their footsteps echoed through the narrow passage. Every turn felt like it would lead them into a trap. But Jack kept moving, his hand never leaving the grip of his blaster. Lyra followed close, her eyes scanning the shadows. At last, they reached the central chamber. In the middle stood a massive crystal, larger than any machine Jack had ever seen. It pulsed slowly, each beat shaking the floor. Chains of glowing symbols wrapped around it. Jack realized it wasn't just a machine, it was alive, and it was the true heart resonator. But standing before it was the Stone Lord leader. His armor was darker here, as if it had absorbed the very shadows. "I warned you, human," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "This ends now." Without waiting for a reply, he lunged, his spear aimed straight for Jack's chest. Jack rolled aside, firing his blaster. But the shots bounced harmlessly off the armor. The fight was hopeless until Lyra stepped forward. Her voice rang through the chamber, speaking words Jack didn't understand. The crystal responded, glowing brighter. The leader roared and swung his spear at her. Jack threw himself between them, taking the blow to his side. Pain exploded through his body, but he stayed on his feet with the last of his strength. Jack placed his hand on the crystal. It flared with blinding light, pulling every heartbeat, every breath, every spark of life from him. The energy surged into Lyra, breaking the last of the stone in a burst of silver dust. She screamed, not in pain, but in something ancient and powerful. Her body shone with radiant light as she faced the Stone Lord. In that moment, she was no longer prey, she was a force of her own. The leader tried to strike again, but Lyra's touch shattered his spear. With one final word in her language, she sent a wave of light through the chamber. The Stone Lords vanished like smoke and wind. The crystal dimmed, and the fortress began to shake. Lyra turned to Jack, catching him as his legs gave way. "You didn't just save me. You changed everything," she whispered. They escaped through the crumbling tunnels. Outside, the sky had cleared, and the fortress lay in ruins. Jack leaned against the ship's ramp, exhausted but alive. Lyra stood beside him, her silver eyes watching the horizon. "I will never forget," she said, her voice carrying a promise. And together, they left the moon, knowing their story was only beginning.